Nick, you mentioned the entry of Sam Hartman that gained a whole lot of attention that this time last year. He put up prolific numbers at Wake Forest. He found himself in a different style offense at Notre Dame. I would say that his season was a standard good season, and obviously because less was expected of him, because it's a run-oriented offense with a stronger offensive line and running backs, that the numbers weren't going to be there. We should have all known that going into the season, but he led a 9-3 football team, and so it neither was a rousing success nor a failure by any stretch. And now we've got Riley Leonard, and so this is much heralded in regards to what's Riley Leonard going to be. He's a different quarterback than Sam Hartman, much more mobile, going to break contain, going to threaten the defense on the move. Do you like this fit and this this acquisition of Riley Leonard?
Yeah, I think if that's the thing that Hartman kind of lacked last year, in that Hartman was, I think that's a fair evaluation, what you said. I think it's a good year. I don't think it's going to be confused with a great year or a legendary year by Notre Dame standards, by any stretch of the imagination. I think a lot of what Hartman kind of came with was you saw his career totals and where he was statistically speaking, historically, on some of those charts. And part of that's because he had the extra year with COVID. And you saw like, wow, this is one of the most prolific passers. And it's in NCAA history. And it's more of a, well, he's kind of a compiler, not necessarily a game breaker week in and week out. And that's not necessarily a knock on him. It's just kind of the guy that he is. And so changing to the new offense, there were some hiccups along the way. Obviously, when you look at Notre Dame's offense this year, game is against Clemson, Louisville, and against Ohio State, it wasn't there for. It didn't produce the way that you see these truly elite offenses do. Now, when they're playing Tennessee State, when they're playing Navy, when they're playing some of the likes of the ACC, whether it's Wake Forest or Pitt, you're seeing 40 points, 50 points put up with relative ease. But when the big dogs come to town, when you're lining up against the more talented teams, the better teams, this offense wasn't anywhere to be found. And I think Riley Leonard is his ability to move the ball on his feet. So an element that Hartman doesn't bring, it just adds one more thing for the defense to have to be able to contain. So, okay, well, drop another guy in coverage because you know that Hartman's not going to scramble, or if he does, he's not going to break away from a whole heck of a lot. Well, Leonard's going to do that. So it makes him more of kind of that dual threat quarterback. And he's not, I don't think he's as good of a passer necessarily as Hartman is, but I think that he's a significantly better runner. I think the difference in him as a runner versus Hartman is greater than the difference in Hartman to him as a passer. And I think that helps Notre Dame overall. And I also think that it helps Notre Dame overall that I think he's going to have a better group of wide receivers, an extremely strong running back room. Offensive line will be a question with two tackles going to the NFL draft this coming year.
Chris Mitchell, highly productive at Florida International, and also played well and put up numbers against Power 5 opponents when he had those opportunities. Bo Collins was a guy that was a highly sought-after recruit, made some plays at Clemson, was a bit spotty, didn't fall in line with that Clemson wide receiver tradition we've seen over the last 10 years. So maybe he didn't meet expectations, but still a productive player in spots. I highlight those two guys, but what is your overall look at the transfer portal additions overall at this point?
Yeah, I think that there are significant losses. Touched on that just a little bit earlier. I think there's a lot that you replace in freshmen that were getting valuable playing time, good amount of playing time. But I do think that when you look at it at the end of the day, that you're going to go into 2024 with more talent on paper than you did 2023. Now, does that necessarily mean that the production is going to be better? Well, there's a lot of factors in play there. A new quarterback looking into a new system. There's a new offensive coordinator coming in, yet to be named. The search is out on that. But so it remains to be seen what exactly is going to happen there. But I think just in terms of on paper of you know what you're getting a little bit in some of the transfers that have come in. You have a solid incoming freshman group here. You have Jaden Greathouse, Jaden Thomas, both returning from this past season as well. So I think that there's a higher base of where things are starting from this past year with the potential to have I don't want to say like this great leaps in terms of a higher ceiling, but I think that there's a steady step forward that can be taken from the receiving group this coming year.